Hi, my name is Alfresco and I'm the product manager for developer platform here at Alfresco. I look after the developer experience, the SDKs, the Java APIs, REST APIs, and the app development framework. I'm a developer at heart and I've been developing with Alfresco product for the last 6 or 7 years. Today I'm very excited to talk to you about the new application development framework, or ADF as we call it. Our customers and partners has always taken our platform and deployed it either as a custom solution built from the ground up based on our REST APIs, or by taking our out-of-the-box UIs and customized it or extended them. ADF is a new way where you can develop custom applications from the ground up with process or content capabilities and deploy it to your users. Behind me, I've drawn a diagram that shows all the details about ADF. Let's go have a look. So when we look at ADF, essentially it is a set of Angular 2 services and components that are reusable and configurable, along with the Yeoman generators and the Alfresco JavaScript API that really allows you to build any kind of applications on top of Alfresco content services and process services, and you can build any kind of application here. So one important thing to remember is that it's purely a client-side technology, so there's no server-side component to it, and everything just compiles into HTML, JavaScript, CSS, and which means it's very easy to host these kind of applications. They communicate exclusively through the REST APIs of both process and content services, which means it doesn't matter whether you're on-premise, in the cloud, or if you have a hybrid solution. ADF applications will work no matter how you're hosting it. So when we look at the stack here, the bottom things is the content services and the process services. And both of these has a great set of REST APIs that are public, they're consistent, they're well documented, and they're backwards compatible. So it just makes sense to really have that as the main entry integration point. On top of that, we've written the Alfresco JavaScript API. Now, this is a completely framework agnostic library that wraps around the REST APIs. It handles all the authentication, all the request and responses, and just provides a nice and clean interface for any kind of JavaScript application. It's available as a standalone module on NPM, and it's really the main thing that you should be looking at if you don't want Angular 2, if you don't want Google Material Design. This is one of the things that really helps you get value. So next up we have the Alfresco Angular 2 services. Now these are a set of shared services that you can use in your Angular 2 application. One example would be the activity task list service. So this will give you a list of tasks that it just gives you the data, and it does the data binding with Angular. So you can get the list, you can sort it, but you don't have any view. You have to provide your own view on top of this service. But if you want a complete view, you can go up and use the Angular 2 components, and this is where you get a more polished and a complete component. So in essence, the task list service is used in the task list component, and this will give you everything you need from a user point of view. So it does all the filtering, it does a table with sorting, it does the task details, it does the form, everything a user would need to interact with a task list. Now, the next thing is where you get into your custom and third-party components. And essentially, when you're writing your ADF application, you're not overriding or extending ADF components. You're creating your own component that's bringing in either a service or the Angular 2 components, or maybe in some instances uses the JavaScript API directly. But the main point here is that it's your application that you control, and that is the experience that you provide to your users. The most important thing about ADF is that it's all about choice. So if you if you don't like Google Material Design and you want to use Twitter Bootstrap, you can go in and use the Angular 2 services, provide your own view. If you're creating a console application in Node.js, or if you're integrating into a third-party web application, or you have an old project, legacy project with jQuery or an older technology, you can use the Alfresco JavaScript API and you can really be successful. So that choice and flexibility really gives you the value as a developer. So when we look at the Angular 2 components, in ADF we come with a number of different components like document list, we have a task list, there's a search, there's a preview, upload, task details, just to name a few. I just want to highlight a couple of the different components we have for each of the underlying services. So one for process services would be the task list. And the task list is actually part of a larger component where we have a filtering component, we have a list component, there's a form details component, and a task form component. And all of these together combined into one component that allows you to do everything with a task. And another example in the content services would be a document list. This is a fully fledged document list component that contains everything you'd expect. So you can browse around on the content services, you can upload, you can download, you can add in custom buttons and actions, you can define the sorting and the filtering. So it's very configurable and dynamic. Now, the thing to remember about all of the components is that they all know about each other and they integrate very well. So a concrete example here would be the document list. It knows that it could potentially be a preview component, that could be a upload component, and a drag and drop component. So if you bring all of these into one page, you could actually just drag and drop a file or a folder directly into your application, and that's some real value. Another example would be on the process services. If you bring in the task component and the task form component, you could easily wire them in. So when you click on a task in the list, it displays the form. The form is already hooked up into the process services. So if you click complete on the process in the form, it advances the process into the next stage. Now, we realize that this is just a few of the components. We highly encourage you to go to the GitHub page and check out all the details about all the components that we have in ADF. One of the key areas we focus on with ADF is developer experience and openness. To help you get from zero to hero in a matter of 5 minutes, we've created the Yeoman generators to help you get up and running. Now, if you're not familiar with Yeoman generators, it's a scaffolding tool that allows you to generate a new complete application based on your requirements, and you can then start it up. So this way you don't have to know about how Angular works, how you would wire in the different components, because the generator just does all this for you. So when you fire up the Yeoman generator, it's going to ask you some questions on where is the process service located, where is the content service located, do you want a task list, do we want to upload, do you want to drag and drop, do you want a task list, all of these kind of questions, which in the end results in a complete skeleton project that you can start working on. We use Node.js and NPM, so NPM will install all the dependencies, and with Node.js we have a Webpack, which is an embedded web server that allows hot reloading. So once it's started, you can just start changing the source files and it just reloads in the browser automatically. So it gives a really nice developer experience and you can very quickly start prototyping up the application. Now, I mentioned that we focus a lot on openness, which is why ADF is released under the Apache 2 license, and it's hosted on GitHub. So along with that, we use Travis CI and Selenium and Jasmine Robot for all the testing purposes, which means that all the testing, the automated testing, happens in the open, and that really allows us to better accept pull requests. So whenever we get a pull request in, we can see if it breaks any changes in the test, or if it's all good. And if it's good, we can very easily choose to accept this pull request. Now, the value and the power that you get as a developer is that if you encounter a bug, you don't have to wait for us to fix it. You can provide the bug fix yourself and do a pull request. If you have a new feature, you can develop this and you can contribute it back in. And if it's a pull request and all the tests are good, then it will just be accepted in and you'll get that in the next release. That's all we have time for today. Thank you for joining me. I hope you found it useful, and I hope you'll go and check out the application development framework for yourself. If you have any feedback on how we improve our products or how we improve the application development framework, please reach out to us and let us know. And of course, I invite you to go and download the Alfresco platform and get started today.